The worn carriage rolled slowly along the cobblestone road, its wooden wheels creaking with every turn. Dust rose behind it in soft clouds before settling over the quiet countryside. The morning was clear, with a bright blue sky stretching above endless green fields dotted with wildflowers. Birds sang from the branches of tall oak trees that lined the road, but inside the carriage, there was no peace. Elara sat quietly in the corner, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Her fingers gripped the edge of her faded beige shawl as though it were the only thing keeping her steady. She wore the plain gray dress her stepmother had given her that morning. The fabric was clean but old, with carefully stitched patches hidden near the hem. She had brushed her long chestnut brown hair into a simple braid before sunrise, hoping at least to appear neat. Looking down at her worn brown shoes, she wished she could disappear before reaching their destination. Across from her sat her stepmother, dressed in an elegant emerald gown decorated with delicate lace. Pearl earrings shimmered every time she turned her head. She looked out the carriage window with a satisfied smile, as if she were attending the finest celebration of the season. Beside her, Elara's stepsister adjusted the ribbons on her rose-pink gown while examining her reflection in a polished silver hand mirror. "Do you think everyone will notice her first?" she asked with a quiet laugh. "They won't be able to look anywhere else," her stepmother replied, her smile growing wider. The two exchanged amused glances. Elara remained silent. She had learned long ago that answering only invited more unkind remarks. The invitation to the Duke's gathering had arrived 2 days earlier. Every eligible young woman in the district had been welcomed to attend the grand reception at Blackthorn Manor. Many families celebrated the opportunity, spending days preparing dresses, arranging hairstyles, and practicing proper introductions. Elara had secretly dreamed of attending. Not because she expected anything extraordinary. She simply wished to see the famous manor everyone admired from afar. For one evening, she wanted to walk through beautiful gardens, hear musicians perform, and admire the grand ballroom she had heard about since childhood. Instead, her dream became something entirely different. Her stepmother refused to let her wear her late mother's carefully preserved blue dress. "That dress belongs in storage," she had said coldly. When Elara quietly suggested borrowing a simpler gown from one of the neighbors, her stepsister laughed. "Oh no. You'll wear this." She tossed the faded gray servant's dress across the room. "It suits you perfectly." Elara accepted it without another word. Arguing never changed anything. That morning, while her stepmother and stepsister spent hours arranging expensive hairstyles and selecting jewelry, Elara quietly swept the kitchen floor, prepared breakfast, washed the dishes, and fed the chickens before finally dressing herself. No one offered to help. No one wished her good luck. Even as they climbed into the carriage, her stepmother barely looked at her. Now, with Blackthorn Manor growing closer, Elara felt her heartbeat quicken. Ladies stepped down wearing gowns of sapphire, ivory, crimson, lavender, and silver. Gentlemen wore tailored coats with polished boots and neatly tied cravats. Laughter drifted through the morning air as families greeted old friends. Elara lowered her eyes again. She knew she looked nothing like them. Her shawl had faded from years of careful washing. Her sleeves had been repaired more than once. She wondered if anyone would notice. Her stepsister noticed her expression. "Nervous?" Elara offered a small smile. "A little." "You should be." The carriage slowed. Ahead stood enormous iron gates framed by carved stone pillars covered with flowering vines. Beyond them rose Blackthorn Manor. The estate was magnificent. Tall white columns supported wide balconies draped with colorful banners. Crystal windows reflected the clear sky. Beautiful gardens stretched in every direction, filled with carefully trimmed hedges, blooming roses, marble fountains, and winding stone paths. Servants moved gracefully between arriving guests, opening carriage doors and welcoming every visitor with polite bows. Even from a distance, the manor looked like something from a storybook. Elara could hardly believe such a place truly existed. For a brief moment, wonder replaced fear. She admired the fountain sparkling beneath the daylight. She watched butterflies flutter above flower beds bursting with color. She listened to distant music floating through the open courtyard. Then her stepmother's voice shattered the moment. "Remember. If you embarrass us, don't expect sympathy." Her stepsister smiled without looking away from the window. "Try not to trip over your own shoes." The carriage finally stopped before the entrance. A servant opened the carriage door. The stepmother stepped out first, lifting her skirt elegantly as though she owned the estate. The stepsister followed with practiced confidence, smiling at nearby guests. Neither of them looked back. Elara remained seated for a heartbeat longer. She took one slow breath. Then another. Quietly, she gathered her courage, adjusted her faded shawl, smoothed the wrinkles from her simple gray dress, and stepped down onto the polished stone path leading toward the grand entrance, unaware that before the day was over, one unexpected act of kindness would change not only her evening, but the course of her entire life.